Welcome, Joshua. Thank you so much for coming. Blockchain Capital obviously is very important in our ecosystem and is groundbreaking and doing a lot of great stuff. Do you want to talk a bit about what you do?
Sure, yeah, it's good to be here. So I'm the general counsel at Blockchain Capital. I've joined about a year and a half ago. And the reason why the team brought me on is because, as you know, the regulatory space or the environment for tokens in particular, as regards regulations here in the United States, is still a very uncertain one.
Yes.
And so I support the team. I sit with the investment team and help them think through any potential investments that we might make and how kind of current regulatory obligations, rules, regulations, laws will affect the protocols or the platforms that they are going to be launching,
Right.
or even the services that they'd be providing to the blockchain or to users of the blockchain. And so we're very focused on a number of things. We keep a close eye on layer one protocols, and we keep a close eye on kind of other layers as well, and also services that can be provided in the ecosystem. And so, the question of what is the regulatory classification of tokens is a big one. And so we are constantly trying to assess that. How are they sold? How can they be distributed? How can we have networks that are truly decentralized? And how can we help teams build projects that will kind of achieve what they want to achieve, which is to issue a token in many cases that doesn't behave like a security, is not supposed to be a security, but has actual demonstrated use case on a decentralized network. So we're really focused on that, among other things. I have the great pleasure of being able to support the team in thinking through some of those really complex issues of applying law to, this industry.
So it is a very tricky at the moment because the SEC's made a few moves this year that have shocked and horrified a few people.
Yeah.
And I guess you have to be right on top of that, correct?
Yeah. What we've seen, it's been a very interesting year. Most recently we saw the SEC settle with Block One with respect to the EOS tokens, which is really interesting. And I think the industry was really excited about that because essentially what the SEC signaled was that Block One sold their tokens in a way that was inconsistent with the securities regulations.
Right.
And so they said, hey, that was bad. But what they tacitly seemed to acknowledge was that the tokens as they exist today are not securities and not subject to the SEC's jurisdiction. And so that seemed like a big win because, okay, sure, they didn't sell the tokens the way they were supposed to, but they were able to figure out a way to decentralize the network such that the SEC doesn't consider those tokens securities. But then, a couple weeks later, they came out with the temporary restraining order and kind of emergency preliminary injunction against Telegram, which, there's a lot of nuance there in terms of the similarities and differences between those two. But it seemed like all of a sudden they were saying, look, if you distribute these tokens even broadly, then in kind of an effort to be decentralized, we're still going to view them as securities. And there's been a bit of a back and forth that is, legal commentators differ, but it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the future of layer one protocols being able to issue tokenized assets on the blockchain. So we have to wait and see, and part of my job is to take as deep a dive as I can and see whether there are distinguishing factors for other layer ones and other token issuers. That, and to assess kind of the regulatory environment around the world, because what we're seeing is, unfortunately, in response to this increased regulatory pressure, teams are just saying, look, I'm going to create a network and I'm going to issue tokens, and I'm just going to do everything I can to fence out the United States from that.
That's what Mike just said too. So
yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it?
It is, and it's unfortunate from that standpoint. We are in San Francisco, and we love to invest in Bay Area teams and teams that are being built in the Bay Area, and so that's certainly our preference. Bay Area and the United States, but we can invest in other jurisdictions, and we will if that's where innovation is happening. And so we're going to continue. This technology it's going to continue to be can't be uninvented, and it's going to continue to be innovated and iterated upon. And so we're gonna follow that innovation wherever it is.
Right, and as you've sort of recapped a bit on the future, but what's your personal vision of where we're heading as far as token market?
I think it's a brave new world, in that it could be in the like literary bad sense, or kind of the colloquial good sense. I think there's lots of things to be excited about, and one thing that we are very excited about is the momentum in the space. Particularly in other jurisdictions, we're seeing a lot of regulators in other jurisdictions who are really trying to wrestle with how they can create frameworks that make sense and protect the things that need to be protected, while allowing teams to innovate and continue to create and grow. And so we're excited to see that. And we think that we're in the early, it's kind of the analogy that I like to make often is, early 90s, the early days of the creation of the internet and different kind of data exchange protocols. That's kind of where we are, right? Early days, it was slow. It was a clunky kind of UI, UX. It made noises. You didn't know what you were going to use it for. And that's kind of where we are in terms of blockchain technology. And so, momentum is building, and people are going to continue to innovate. And we're really excited to see what comes of it. And we're hopeful that, the U.S. doesn't kind of miss this opportunity to foster pioneers in the space.
I know we had Scott from the SEC at the conference last year, and also on a panel earlier in the year, and he did stress that the SEC doesn't want to stop innovation. So I guess they're on a very fine line, really, trying to make sure that things are done properly, but also not to stifle innovation here.
Yeah, I think it's the SEC is a large regulatory body, and I'm guilty of this. We often talk about the SEC as if it's like, one single kind of hive mind that is all in kind of, in sync with itself. And that's just simply not true. There are many people at the SEC that are pro-innovation, that really want to think with appropriate nuance about how we go about regulating this space. And they're working hard, but then there's a whole cohort of their peers who kind of have a very one-track mind about what this stuff is, and so it's hard. It's hard for them to be able to kind of cohesively regulate the space in a meaningful way. And that's part of my job as well, is to engage with regulators, engage with lawmakers, to help them think better about the space. So. Lots of work to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And looking forward to the panel.
Thanks. Yeah, good to be here.